part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. And today we have a special guest, Josh Robbins from The Athletic. But before we do get started, this episode is brought to you by Bet Online. Today's episode is brought to you by Bet Online. They have you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. So today we have Josh Robbins from The Athletic. How are you feeling today?
I feel good. We'll see how I talk. We'll see how I speak.
Right.
You and your audience will judge then, but so far so good.
Right. So how did you feel about the Wizards lottery odds? Were you disappointed in them, or did you ever get your hopes up in them getting the top 4 pick? Did you have a rabbit's foot or any good luck charm with you?
Oh, well, I don't look at the team quite like that. I bring an objective lens to things. But I will say I've covered many lotteries in the past. I would say I've attended maybe 7 over the last 10 years. That's a rough guess. And I can tell you, even as someone who's as objective as I am, the atmosphere in the room where the results are announced, it compares to the atmosphere at a Super Bowl. It really does. It compares to the atmosphere at a Game 7 of a playoff. So I expected them to finish 10th only because that's where their odds were, 66%, I think, if I remember correctly. All of that said, I'm sure that team officials were disappointed. They knew what the odds were heading in, but yes, of course they wanted more. They wanted to jump into that top 4. They knew it was unlikely, but no matter what they say, there's some disappointment there.
Right, most certainly. So you wrote an article about the Wizards creating their own luck. And people who are listening, you can go to The Athletic and check it out. But I just wanted to get like a quick rundown on what you meant by the Wizards creating their own luck for the season upcoming.
Well, some teams, they luck into their dynasties, right? Some teams luck into their dynasties or to their success. I think that's probably a better way to phrase it. The Cleveland Cavaliers, in the first go-around for LeBron James, they had the number 1 pick. The New York Knicks got the number 1 pick when Patrick Ewing was the unquestioned great prospect. That's not the case for these Washington Wizards. Just isn't. They're 10th in the draft in a year where, by the way, there isn't a surefire superstar. So they're going to have to hit on that 10th pick. They're going to have to value someone correctly whom 9 other teams undervalued. Or they're going to have to make a trade. They're going to have to internally develop, most likely a combination of all 3 things. So as many of the commenters on my article noted, that's what the better teams do year in and year out. No team is perfect with all of its draft picks, but the better teams hit more than they miss. The Miami Heat, they're a Southeast Division rival of the Wizards, of course. They hit on Bam Adebayo. They hit on Tyler Hero. They've created their own luck in that sense. They've created their own luck in such a way that they could afford to bring aboard Jimmy Butler, who was an established star, arguably a superstar when they brought him aboard. They've developed guys whom the whole rest of the league did not value. Duncan Robinson, Gabe Vincent. I mean, who are these guys? 3 years ago, we would have said, who the heck is Duncan Robinson? Well, the Miami Heat put them into roles, and they excel in their roles. So Wizards didn't get that that number 1 pick or the 2nd or 3rd. They're going to have to do it a different way. And that's what I mean by creating their own luck.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, Omer Yurtseven from Georgetown. Yeah, the Heat, they have so many undrafted and second-round picks that come in and produce. And, the Wizards, they have been able to do that. And if it was easy, everybody would do that. So, yeah, I definitely see where you're saying they have to force some type of luck with either trading the pick or just hitting on that 10th pick. Now, Tommy Sheppard in his presser the other day, he said there's 15 players that he does like at pick 10. Who are some names that you could see fit with the Washington Wizards at pick 10? Or have you heard that the Wizards front office has any interest, like they like any player other than any other, or do they have any combine workouts coming up with certain players?
Well, they won't start their workouts until roughly June 1st. Anyone who says that the Wizards have made up their mind, or it's irrelevant now. It's ludicrous to even suggest. Certainly, the Wizards front office has studied the people in the draft, not just in college or in a few cases the G League or overseas. That's all true, and they have their opinions, no doubt about it. But while the Wizards might have a big board right now, there's so much that could change between now and draft day. These teams, Wizards included, don't have any of the players' medicals, and we never talk about this because no one outside of these teams, and sometimes the teams themselves don't receive the medicals. But that's one of the most important factors in any draft. They have not, for the most part, and it's getting underway this week in the combine. The Wizards have not sat down with underclassmen who are in the draft yet for interviews. They haven't worked them out. Now, the workouts are probably the least important part of the whole chemistry, the whole amalgam of however they make their picks. But are there players who you also asked me, are there players I could see them drafting? Yeah, a bunch. And right now, I'd be less concerned about positional fit than ceiling upside and the ability to develop that upside. So there's so many names that have been mentioned. It's not that complicated right now. We could Benedict Mathurin. I don't think he'll be available at 10th, but if he is, that's someone whom the Wizards should consider. Ty Washington Jr. The team needs a point guard. I think the Wizards would be overdrafting him at 10 if they pick him there, but could he be in the mix? Yes. Dyson Daniel, he's been mentioned. A solid perimeter defender, an intriguing prospect. I rambled on, and I'm sorry for that, but
no, it's fine. It's
right
totally
now
fine.
It's even more of a crapshoot right now than it will be on draft day in late June. I wish I knew who they were zeroing in on, but right now, it's true. It's accurate to say they haven't zeroed in on anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's still very early in the process.
To get there. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you.
Oh no, yeah, it's still very early in the process. June 23rd is draft night, so we still have more than a month away. The combine has started. There's workouts to go, different individual meetings to go. So we do have a little bit of time here. It will go by quickly. They do have a little bit of time. I do want to get to your mock draft that you did put in an article. I want to say it was on Saturday or a couple of days ago. Before we do get to that, this episode, we have a quick word from Built Bar. This episode is brought to you by Built Bar. The other day, I tried the birthday puffs. I got them in the mail. They taste really, really good. I usually put them in the refrigerator, and they give them a little zing. They are super, super healthy. They taste just like a candy bar, but they're healthy. Only 140 calories, 17 grams of protein, and only 7 grams of sugar. Also, you can try the brownie batter puffs. They're the perfect pick-me-up for any day. All Built Puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means with Built Bar, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy doing it. And they are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. The brownie batter puffs will have you completely forgetting that you are eating a protein bar. No need to pinch yourself. This is real life. Go to Built.com to get brownie batter puffs now. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCK15, and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. Make sure to go check out Locked On NBA Big Board with host Rafael Barlow from NBA Draft Junkies and author of the NBA Big Board newsletter, is joined by Richard Stamen, Sam Ferris, and Leif Thulin, giving fans an in-depth look into the NBA draft, mock draft player rankings, And of course, Big Boards is free and available wherever you get podcasts. All right. So you talked about fit and just drafting, the best player available. Your mock draft had Jeremy Sohan at pick 10. And, it is somewhat of a crapshoot at pick 10. There's so many ways you could go with it. I just want to, a lot of Wizards fans, they weren't happy with the pick. You see the Wizards have drafted a lot of forwards, Denny, Troy Brown Jr., Rui Hachimura, Corey Kispert. How would you think his fit would come in? A guy that struggled from the three. He shot 29% from the three and 58% from the free throw line. Why do you think some fans had pushed back with that mock draft pick?
Well, no one at number 10 is going to be perfect.
Right.
But the fans, they're not wrong. The fans are not wrong. The Wizards have as you know, Ed, they've got lots of fours, lots of 3/4s, and Sohan would be in that mix. And if they're going to draft Sohan, they could and should clear the way to have him earn a spot in terms of the rotation. There's no question about it that it's in terms of positional fit with the people the Wizards already have is less than ideal. No question. And the shooting issue, it's a problem, 100%. But again, this is the problem of getting the 10th pick in a draft, in an NBA draft that I probably isn't that deep. There's not going to be a perfect player there. For example, if they were to talk about AJ Griffin, a guy who can score, he can really score. He can probably create a shot. Well, the book on him is that he doesn't defend at all. So my point is that there's not going to be a player whom we all consider perfect on paper at number 10. Johnny Davis, I think he's an intriguing, solid prospect. Solid in the way that Rui was solid coming out of college. Solid in the way Kispert was coming out of Gonzaga too. But he has limits on him. This is the problem of being somewhere in the middle.
Right.
And this is where the Wizards are, and it's not an easy place to be. It's not an easy place to be.
Right. Yeah, I was listening to the live room yesterday that you did on The Athletic, and you said, you don't want to throw the wet blanket on Wizards fans or be the bearer of bad news. How would you evaluate Tommy Sheppard's GM tenure so far and the way he's drafted? Drafting Denny Avdia, you said that they possibly, should have or could have went with Tyrese Halliburton, or you look in the second round, he took Isaiah Todd, and Herbert Jones was there, who's playing really well with the Pelicans. You can always look in hindsight and say that they should have made this pick or this pick. But how do you feel like the Wizards have an identity at all? You see the Heat, like you mentioned before, and they hit on their second round picks, or they bring in guys that have that grit and grind mentality. Or you look at the Grizzlies, they get guys like Desmond Bane, who are more developed guys that can come in and knock down threes, or Dylan Brooks. How do you feel about Tommy Sheppard's tenure so far in his first 3 years, and also the direction of the Washington Wizards?
Well, as I said on the podcast the other day for The Athletic, choosing Avdia over Halliburton, if I'm not getting my drafts all mixed up, it's possible. In hindsight, that's a mistake. The Wizards need shot creation. They need someone who could do what Tyrese Halliburton can do, should be doing in the future. So, yes, that was a miss. His draft picks have largely been pretty good, not great. Really, his tenure, I think, has been really defined by his trades. And by any measure, to move off of John Wall with that terrible contract, coming off of injury for Russell Westbrook, was a brilliant move. To move off of Russell Westbrook's $40+ million left on his per year left on his contract, and bring in 4 rotation players, that was a smart move. Now the problem, of course, with that is that Dinwiddie didn't work out. Harrell in the long run didn't work out. Aaron Holiday didn't work out. So I'm not saying that the ledger is perfect, but so far the majority of his trades have been excellent, and that's no small feat. And I think, given where they are now, that's probably the most likely avenue for them to improve through trades. And so far, his tenure has been successful from the trade standpoint.
Right. Yeah, it looks like he's, created some fires and then he puts them out, the Davis Bertans contract, and then he had to end up and trade him. Spencer Dinwiddie giving him that contract, and he had to put out that fire where it didn't fit with Bradley Beal, some locker room problems here with Montrezl Harrell, and he had to put that fire out and traded some guys and brought in Kristaps Porzingis. So it's been up and down. Them making the playoffs last year definitely was a very, it was definitely unprecedented because they finished the season 17-6 after getting Daniel Gafford, so they made a good run after that. I did want to get to the point guard position. I know you brought up some guys from Orlando since you covered the Orlando Magic before, but we do have a quick word from Bet Online. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so the whole point guard position, how do you see the Wizards attacking the point guard position? Could you see them using pick 10 in a trade package to bring in another point guard?
I could see that. I could see them using the 10th pick plus a player to bring in an established, solid point guard. I could see them using the 10th pick on a point guard. And right now, Ty Washington Jr. would be the most likely person at that spot. So most likely, I see that issue being resolved in some sort of trade, whether it's just a conventional trade or maybe a sign and trade. But you hit on the issue exactly right, I think, Ed, is that's their biggest positional hole, and they can't enter the year the way they finished the year. I think not with Satoransky as the starter and Ish as the second string guy. I think if you were to kind of move the dominoes, so Satoransky were the backup and Ish were the third string guy, I think that wouldn't be a bad way to go. But most likely, I see it being fulfilled through a trade of some kind.
Mm. And I saw you in an article before, you mentioned some of the guys from Orlando, possibly Jalen Suggs, possibly Markelle Fultz, who is from the DC area, or possibly Cole Anthony. Who are some guys that you think the Wizards could possibly target at that point guard position?
Well, I only brought up
via trade.
I only brought up the Magic guys because I was asked about the Magic guys.
Oh, okay.
I think David Aldridge who is a genius, was the person who also brought them up in another article. It makes sense if we're trying to connect the dots as to point guards whom might be available. Well, Orlando has 3 people who, when arguably you only need 2. So could a Markelle Fultz or a Jalen Suggs or a Cole Anthony be had via trade? Yeah, maybe. Now, I don't think Cole Anthony is the fit for the Washington Wizards. Markelle Fultz would be a much better offensive fit, given the dynamics at play there. But defensively, Suggs would be a better fit. None of those 3 players are perfect, and I know them well. So is Malcolm Brogdon a possibility? I would imagine he could be. So if I knew, of course, exactly the direction they would go, I would have written it already. And but these are some of the possibilities that could occur. that could occur.
Right. And what kind of point guard do you see would be the best fit in the next to Bradley Beal? We saw it with Spencer Dinwiddie; it didn't work out. What kind of point guard do you feel would work best, or what kind of point guard do you think Tommy Sheppard should look for?
I think it's very difficult to draw definitive conclusions on the situation involving Spencer Dinwiddie. It's unclear to me why exactly he didn't mesh with the team. I'm not suggesting that there was anything other than a bad on-court fit. In theory, it shouldn't have been that bad. It wasn't because Bradley Beal is a ball-dominant off guard and Dinwiddie needs the ball in his hands. Well, um, fair to argue. Wes Unseld has said he would prefer someone who's more of an organizer, someone who could stop the ball at the point of attack. I think his answer stems in part from the way Bradley Beal plays. That Beal needs the ball in his hands quite a bit. So, ideally, you'd want the best possible play. I don't care what Wes Unseld Jr. said in terms of just wanting an organizer. You'd want the best possible point guard you can get. And a ball dominant Russell Westbrook had success alongside Bradley Beal, and Bradley Beal had success alongside a ball dominant Russell Westbrook. They're going to just, whatever direction they go into, they're going to have some dialogue before that direction is set, where they get a sense of how whomever is coming in would mesh with Beal, not personality wise, but on the court. So it's not an easy hole to fill. I do agree with you in the sense that the Dinwiddie issue should give them some pause, where they're going to have to figure out what exactly happened there before they set upon a path. But again, this is where they are, and not having a point guard in a perimeter-oriented league, it's a huge problem.
Yeah, it's definitely. It didn't work out. A lot of things didn't work out with the chemistry there, and it's just interesting to see him have some good games with a different team, so quickly. But I guess just the role didn't work. He's more of a sixth man, a guy to come off the bench, and he's more of a ball dominant guard. So I know they were looking for a pass first point guard now instead of just getting a combo guard scorer that's better off the bench. But speaking of trades and some of our young talent to bring in a point guard, who has impressed you most out of the young three between Rui Hachimura, Corey Kispert, and Denny Avdia?
None of them are fully formed. None of the three are fully formed in the sense that none of them are really effective two-way players yet. Do they get there? I don't know. In other words, each one of them has done at least one or two things on one end of the floor that really impressed me. You need more, or you need them in strictly defined roles alongside two or three really top-level players. So Rui is impressive to me because he can score. He's shot the three far beyond anybody's reasonable expectations this past season, but he doesn't pass well. And defensively, I would say he's been far more of a weakness than for the team than a strength. When physically, there's no reason why he can't be successful on the defensive end. Denny is a tough competitor defensively. He has a lot of potential, he's got a layer to his offense as a passer, but he doesn't shoot well. He doesn't finish well. Corey Kispert started to shoot the three ball well, and I think everybody thinks that he will become a plus 3-point shooter eventually. And he's a great cutter, but one-on-one defensively, that's not his strong suit either. So different things with different guys impress me, but I can't say that any one of the three projects definitely as a top-level two-way player. And again, and I keep going back to this, and I'm sorry that I'm repetitive, this is one of the issues of picking somewhere in the middle of the draft or worse. It's going to be very tough. It's going to be tougher to find someone who checks all the boxes. And the one area where I disagree with a lot of Wizards fans is the belief that they haven't developed these young guys well. In each of the three cases, each one of those guys made improvements over the past year. The question is just how many more boxes will they check? Which, of course, that's the issue. And that's why this offseason for them and the subsequent offseason, that's so important.
Right. And how do you see their trade value? I know that's hard to gauge, but like a trade package with, maybe Kuzma or Denny and Rui for Malcolm Brogdon, or Denny and Rui, or Rui in the 10th pick for somebody like a Markelle Fultz or KCP. Out of the three guys, who do you think would bring back the best trade value?
Good question. Tough question. Probably Denny, because he's the youngest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't envision the Wizards trading both Denny and Rui in the same deal.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't, because they play essentially the same position. And as for KCP, he's arguably their most consistent guy on both ends. So where could they go? I think the young play, and I'm not Kispert, Rui, Denny, they would be most likely to be draw interest from teams that are trying to rebuild or trying to grow and add young people to whatever nucleus they have. So I think that they would be more toward a team such as, not necessarily Indiana, but a team such as in Indiana. I think that's more the direction where they would wind up.
Right. Most likely for bringing in somebody like a Malcolm Brogdon. And then lastly, how are you feeling about Bradley Beal and his contract situation? Which direction? I know this is probably an easy question for the Wizards. Which direction do you think the Wizards are going in with Bradley Beal? And then also, if you had to make the decision on Bradley Beal, do you think it's wise for the Wizards to give him the $250 million contract extension that he's eligible for, or would you look to move on and do a sign and trade and start a new chapter for the Washington Wizards?
So that's not the easiest question of all. It's the most difficult question anyone could ask right now, because as an expert recently told me when I asked this exact question was, what is the alternative? So I think the first part of your question, the answer is, it appears that the two sides are moving toward a 5-year deal. It appears that way at this stage. There's been no indications that they're not. As a matter of fact, Tommy Sheppard has said outright, and Bradley Beal has hinted outright that that's the likely scenario. If the problem, of course, is paying any player $45 million, an average of $45 million over the course of 5 years, it's going to constrict the ability to bring people who can help him aboard. So I'd be reluctant to do that if I were the Wizards. And if you're going to move off Bradley Beal, well, now it has to be done in a sign and trade. He would have to go to a place he'd want to go, which would probably limit whom the Wizards could bring back. The one thing I think, so they're in a tough spot. If they bring back Bradley Beal, it's going to be hard to construct a team around him because of the amount of money his salary would take relative to the rest of the cap. True. But if they move off him and start a full-fledged rebuild, which I don't think they have any interest in doing, given the way that draft lottery odds have been flattened out, that rebuild could take years. Yes, Wizards fans have suffered a long time. I get it. I grew up a Wizards fan, a Bullets fan. I grew up a Bullets fan. I know what it's like. I understand how they feel. But just because a team starts a rebuild doesn't mean that comes to fruition in a way fans can tolerate. It's, as David Aldridge, as I said, the genius said in something that he and I collaborated on, if the Wizards had wanted to trade Bradley Beal, the best time to have done so was 2 years ago. And right now, in many respects, the organization is in a corner, finds itself backed into a corner.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a dilemma. I mean, you look at the Thunder; they've been rebuilding for the past 2 or 3 years. They have about 100 first-round picks. You look at Orlando; they're rebuilding as well. Or you look at like a team with like the Kings; they haven't made the playoffs in years. Even the Sixers, who trusted the process, they tanked and got so many picks, and they still haven't even made it past the second round with all the talent they have. So it is interesting. And the Wizards haven't gotten past the second round since 1979 either. So it definitely is a tough spot there. But I just want to ask you before we wrap up, if you had a somewhat bold prediction for the Wizards this all season, and also if everything breaks right, Porzingis stays healthy and plays at a high level, Bradley Beal returns to the form that he was as an All NBA player, and they do find a mid-level point guard that they can bring in via trade, such as a Brogdon or a Tyus Jones. What is the Wizards' ceiling next season?
I'm not sure Tyus Jones is a starting caliber point guard.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the Grizzlies had a lot of success with Morant out of the lineup. I fully acknowledge that. But if everything breaks right, yeah, I think their ceiling could be, again, if everything breaks right, yes, I think their ceiling could be a 6th spot in the East. Yes. Of course, what are the chances everything will break right? Great question.
All right. Did you have a bold prediction for the Wizards this all season?
I think it's along the lines of what I said earlier, that the point guard spot will be probably filled through some sort of trade, which leaves a lot of options, I know, but that's my guess. And I'll give you a bonus prediction. If they fill it through the draft, it would probably entail them trading down.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that too. I know the Grizzlies have 2 first-round picks, possibly them, maybe the Spurs. So there's a lot of options they could go with. But I want to thank you for coming on. A lot of people for listening. Thank you guys for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NBA, from the first jump ball of the play-in tournament to the last possession of the NBA Finals. Locked On experts take you deep inside the playoffs with insight and analysis affecting all 30 teams. And Josh, just want to thank you for coming on. Is there anything that you want to promote or any future articles coming up?
Well, there are future articles coming up, which I do super secret, right? No, thank you, Ed, for having me. And most also, thank you to everybody here in Washington and everyone around the world who are Wizards fans who've welcomed me and so kindly over the last few months, and then are reading my copy. It's such a privilege to be here, and you know how to reach out to me, jrobbins@theathletic.com, or DMs on Twitter. And thank you all for being a part of the Athletic family. It's been great. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Thank you once again, and everybody, thank you for listening. Have a good one. Hell to the